The gospel text of today makes a number of points. The context is that Jesus is in the region of Caesarea Philippi and asks his disciples two questions. The first is, who people say that he is, and the second, who the disciples say that he is. He then goes on after the response of Peter to speak about the kind of Christ, the kind of Messiah, the kind of Savior he has come to be, and then has to correct Peter even rudely because Peter is unable to understand. And so the first question which Jesus asks his disciples is who people say he is. And the response of people to the person of Jesus is to think that he is John the Baptist, that he is Elijah, he is Jeremiah, and he is one of the prophets. None of these answers are the correct answer, because Jesus is all of these and more. Jesus is Son of God. And so when he asks the disciples, it is Peter who becomes the spokesman of the group when he says to Jesus, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." The word Christ is the Greek word which means in English the anointed one, and which means in Hebrew the Messiah. So Peter is telling Jesus that he is the Messiah, the anointed one, the Son of God. Jesus speaks with Peter and commends him for his answer, because that is the correct answer, but only on the surface level. Because immediately after commending Peter, Jesus goes on to explain the kind of Christ, the kind of Messiah, the kind of Savior he will be. He will not be a Savior who comes galloping on a horse. He will not be a Savior who will overthrow people with violence. He will not be a Savior who will assert his authority. He will not be a Savior who will dominate his subjects. Rather, he will be a king who becomes king by being servant. He will be a king who becomes king by being non-violent. He will be a king who will not expect people to serve him, but whose servant he will become. He will be a king who will also be Son of God when he spreads his arms in total surrender to God's will and for the salvation of the whole of humanity. This is the kind of king that he has come to be. When Peter protests that he wants him to be a warrior Messiah, when Peter protests that he wants him to come galloping on a horse, Jesus will have none of it, and that is why calls Peter Satan. Because any other kind of kingship is to suggest that Jesus has come not as the Messiah, but as a warrior. Any other kind of kingship will be to suggest that Jesus is not on God's side, but on Satan's side, like Peter is in this instance. It is not easy to accept the way of Jesus. It is not easy to accept a non-violent way. It is not easy to accept a way when you show your authority not through domination, but you show your authority by service. It is not easy to be a disciple of Jesus. And so today the challenge is whether I can accept such a Messiah, and not only accept such a Messiah, but whether I can follow him along this way. Will my life, like the life of Jesus, be a life of service? Will my life, like the life of Jesus, be a life of giving? Will my life, like the life of Jesus, be a life of sacrifice and love?